This is Ultraleap Leap's motion controller. It's a hand and finger tracking device and now ready to be used with Glover. Let's see what its main features are and how to set it up. The Leap can these days be found on many VR headsets to give users hands in a virtual space. It uses 2 infrared cameras to detect the motion of your hand, even 2 hands, and your individual fingers. It's also a great advantage that it's connected to your computer with a USB cable, so you never have to worry about connecting the device. And together with our posture recognition algorithm, it does really make a great device for Glover. So you can, for example, use postures to trigger notes and use the height above it to apply a filter, and then roll for added motion. To use the Leap Motion with Glover, you will need to install its driver. You can do that for free from the Leap Motion website, which is leapmotion.com/setup. Then you choose the product that you want to get the driver for. We're going to go for the Leap Motion controller. Select. And here's the download page for the SDK. Now you choose your operating system and then click download. It will ask you to sign up. It's free, and then you can download the SDK. Then you'll get a folder within there an installer file. As I already have the driver installed, you might want to pause the video and go through these previous steps up until the point where you've installed the driver. So once you've done that, there will be an application on your computer called Leap Motion. When you open that, an icon will appear at the top toolbar here. Mine is currently green because I have my Leap Motion plugged into my computer. If it's not plugged in, this will be black. Let's have a quick look at its settings. There's actually not that much that we care about, but this one is important, the allow background apps. Because what this means is that even when the Leap Motion is running in a background application, its movement and its data will still be tracked. And this is important because when you're working with Glover and another software application where you're running your music, like Ableton Live or something, Glover sometimes might become a background application and you still want the Leap to be working. So you have to make sure that this is ticked on. You might want to play with the interaction height, which means how high your hand can be above the Leap. You don't really care about tracking. In troubleshooting, you might want to recalibrate your device. You do this by pointing the Leap at your screen. You just have to make sure that you do this in a not too bright room. And the other thing that you might want to do when you just got your Leap is to run this diagnostic visualizer so you can see that everything is working correctly. So as soon as you hold your hand above it, you will see the left and the right camera and how this movement is coming in with this funny stick figure. So now let's have a look at how to use the Leap Motion device within Glover. To add a device, you click on the plus button here next to devices. From this list, you choose Leap Motion, and this will add a Leap Motion device into your device pane. You see this icon here, and now it's black, but as soon as I move my hand over the Leap, it will turn orange. And that indicates that that Glover is currently tracking the movement over that Leap. At the top here, I can give it a name. And this will become apparent a little bit later on in this video, why it's useful to name it. Here we can mute the device. So all of its outputs from Glover will be muted at the same time too. And at the bottom here, it displays the current posture that's being made. But as I have not trained any postures yet, it just says no posture right now. So when you click on the device, it will open the inspector at the bottom here. And here we can see all of the different kinds of inputs that we're getting from the Leap in this moment. So this is the flex panel, and in here we see the flex, so the bend of each individual finger and even parts of the finger. And so when I, for example, make a fist, you can see that all the sliders move up, and then when I let go, they all go down again. And when I just move my index finger, you see that the second group of sliders move up. So when you click on this panel, we can get the different views from the Leap. First we have camera 1 and camera 2. And both of these cameras together make up the actual data that we're getting from the Leap. Sometimes it can be useful to see this camera view so you understand what the Leap is actually seeing. Here we have the orientation panel, and here we can see the orientation movements coming. So first we have yaw, which is the angle of your hand, of your basically the tip of your fingers, whether that's pointing to the left or pointing to the right. So it has nothing to do with moving from left to right with your whole hand, but with this angle. Then we have pitch. So again, this has nothing to do with the height. We'll come to that in a minute. But it has to do with the angle of your hand. So it's with your fingers pointing up, your fingers pointing down. And then lastly, we have roll, which is just the roll of your wrist. The next panel is the hand position. So the first one is height. So this is how high your hand is over the Leap. And the bottom square here visualizes all the other movements over the Leap. So from left to right, front to back, and everything in between. And then we have drum hits. So these are peaks in this downward movement. And here we have the posture panel. In the posture panel, you can train postures that you make with your hands, and then later on use those postures, so those static poses that you make with your hands, as buttons, as qualifiers. And how to train these postures is by making the actual posture and then teaching the posture recognition algorithm examples of that posture, so that when in the future you do make a posture, the algorithm checks what posture it resembles the most. You can basically train any posture that you physically can make with your hand, but just make sure that they're different enough from each other so that it's easy for the algorithm to differentiate between them. We have 4 postures sort of pre-named here, so let's train those. So to train a posture, I'm going to make a fist so that the Leap can see it. So make sure that it's actually tracking, and then make a fist, and then click the button to train an example. I'm going to train 10 examples per posture, and while I do that, I slightly move my hand so that it gets that a fist can look like a few different ways, but always in the same pose, but maybe like you can imagine that you don't always put it exactly the same over the Leap. So we want to help the algorithm a little bit. Okay, now an open hand. And a 1 finger point. And pinch. And then I hit save to save the training data, and you'll see that the save button has gone green, meaning that it's saved everything that I just taught it. So now when I make these postures, they turn orange as soon as they're recognized. If I wanted to for example, add a posture. So maybe I want to have a 2-finger point as well. I just make a 2-finger point and then click an empty space to train it. And now it says there's 10 new postures added. And the previously green save button has now turned orange to let you know that you still have something to save. Let's save. So now when I make the 2-finger point, it turns posture 5 orange. We don't want to have it be called posture 5, so let's rename it. So you have to do a right click on posture 5 or a control click, rename posture, and I'm going to name it 2FP, 2-finger point, and I'm going to call this 1FP. One more thing in the inspector that is useful is this hand drop-down menu. So at the moment, this Leap Motion device is set, the hand is set to nearest, meaning that if that I can use either hand to use this device. So with my right hand, you can see that it's still tracking and recognizing these postures, but also when I move my left hand over it, it will also be tracking and recognizing these postures. So now we can also change it for it to only recognize it, so to only activate this device when I'm using a left hand. So now when I'm moving my left hand over it, everything is still working, and I put my right hand over it, nothing. So why is this useful? Well, it mostly comes into play when you want to add another Leap Motion device. And give that a right hand. Let's rename it. So this is my Leap left, and this is my Leap. Oh no, my Leap right. So this one is now affiliated just with the left hand, and this one with just the right hand. So now we'll see. When I move my right hand over it, the left one gets activated and the right one, just the right one. But they also work at the same time, meaning that you can make mappings where you're using both of your hand, and then you'll get so much more options of mapping your movements and postures, which is great. Now let's have a look at the different inputs that we have that we can use in our mappings. So first we have flex. So we see all of the individual fingers, and these represent the different knuckles from the palm to the fingertips. So I'm gonna show you index 3, which is my top knuckle. So you can see that the movement of my index finger is now coming in, so I can use that as a movement. The next one is orientation, so pitch, roll, and yaw. Hand position, so we have height. And we also have front to back. And left, and let's have a look at left to right. The next one is hand tilt, and this is a qualifier. You have palm down, palm left, and palm right. So meaning the direction that the static direction that your palm is pointing at. So let's do palm. So this is palm left. So I'm going to point my palm to the left, and then the mapping gets launched. Then we have drum hits, drum hit up and drum hit down. The next group are gestures. These basically are movements that have an end point. So once you've completed the movement, an event will be sent. So for example, let's go for swipe right. And so I'm going to swipe to my right. And you'll see that like with drum hits, this event is sent. You might want to lower the threshold so that the mapping actually will be launched. one of my favorites from this list is the pinch amount. So the pinch amount basically measures the space in between your thumb and your index finger. And the last one is grab. Grab is basically the same as fist, and it's a qualifier. Then we have all of our trained postures. And the last one is tracking hand. And this one is pretty cool because it basically resembles what you see here when the icon turns orange, meaning that it is tracking your hand. And we can use this as a qualifier to turn things off and on. So now we've seen all the device inputs, let's try to make some simple mappings like what I did at the intro of this video. Let's make a new scene. I was controlling notes and effects, so give it a new name. And then I was playing those notes with a chord machine. So let's open a chord machine. And the first note I think was a D, but a lower one, and a B. Oh. So I'm using the octave button here to lower the note. And then I was controlling them with different postures. So let's drag in for the D, drag in a fist. And then for the B, a pinch. The sound, by the way, is coming from Ableton Live, where I already have a soft synthesizer set up to MIDI channel 1, like the output of this instrument in Glover. So now when I make a fist, I'm triggering a D, and a pinch, I'm triggering a B. And as soon as I move out, the note will stop. So then I was controlling some effects. So let's add a combined input-output mapping. And I was using, for the input, I was using height, which we can find in your hand position. So yeah, we can see that that's working. And as an output, I was using MIDI. Let's just go with the suggested MIDI mapping. And then map this to an effect into the filter in Ableton Live. Always make sure to solo your mappings when you go into MIDI mapping mode. Now let's go to Live. I was controlling this filter frequency parameter. So I click it, Command M for MIDI mapping mode, and then make the movement that you want to use as a mapping. Now it's mapped 120. So MIDI channel 1, CC number 20, and I'll go out of MIDI mapping mode. So yeah, now we can see that when I'm moving changing the height of my hand, it's controlling that filter frequency. So the next effect that I was controlling was this motion. Let's make a mapping for that in Glover. Add another mapping input-output. As an input, I was using roll. And as an output, again, let's go with MIDI and the suggested MIDI MIDI number. Again, really make sure to solo this mapping, because otherwise both of these MIDI messages will be sending and Ableton Live won't be sure which one to map to the parameter that you want. So solo, go back to Live, MIDI map mode, click the parameter that you want to map, and then make the movement. So now when I do roll, I'm controlling that motion. Currently, the height on the filter frequency isn't working because I have this mapping soloed. Currently, we only have 2 mappings, but this can easily get confusing. So maybe make sure to name all of your mappings. So filter frequency, and motion. So what do we have now? The filter, more motion, So these were some very simple mappings that you can do with the Leap motion. If you want to know more about mapping, then make sure to watch our longer mapping tutorial. The link is in the description of this video.